I'm Patricia, 27, female. I live in a small but cozy apartment in the city, fueled by coffee and the thrill of planning other people's escapes. As a travel agent, my job is to build dream vacations and seamless business trips, coordinating every tiny detail from flights to dinner reservations. The story I'm about to tell you isn't about a trip that went wrong, but about a client who pushed someone too far, and how I used the details of his own meticulously planned life to completely dismantle it. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Our agency, Global Journeys, had a reputation for handling high-profile corporate accounts. We were the best because we were discreet, efficient, and never buckled under pressure. Our biggest client was a tech firm called Innovate Dynamics, and its CEO, David Miller, was our most demanding customer. David was a man carved from arrogance and impatience. At 52, he had the kind of wealth that made him believe the normal rules of courtesy didn't apply to him. His executive assistant, Sarah Jenkins, was his shadow, a woman of 38 who seemed to derive her life's purpose from enforcing his ridiculous standards and looking down on everyone else. This year, the big project was the annual Innovate Dynamics Leadership Retreat in Kyoto, Japan. It was a massive undertaking, coordinating travel for 20 executives, booking a private wing of a luxury hotel, arranging cultural excursions, and planning a gala dinner. The logistics were a nightmare, but I thrived on that kind of challenge. This project was also a huge opportunity for our new intern, Ben Carter. At 22, Ben was fresh out of college, eager, and incredibly kind. Maybe a little too kind for this industry. He saw the good in everyone and was determined to prove himself. I took him under my wing, assigning him smaller tasks related to the Kyoto trip, confirming restaurant bookings, creating personalized welcome packets, and double-checking visa requirements. He was meticulous, and his enthusiasm was infectious. The planning process spanned 3 months, filled with late nights and a constant barrage of emails from Sarah Jenkins. Every request from David was marked urgent, and every decision was subject to change at a moment's notice. Mr. Miller has decided the welcome champagne should be Dom Perignon, not Veuve Clicquot. Please rectify immediately. Mr. Miller finds the font on the draft itinerary displeasing. Use something more authoritative. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. Ben handled it with a smile, always responding with a cheerful "will do," or "on it right away." He was a ray of sunshine in the cynical world of corporate travel. I warned him gently. Don't let them get to you, Ben. With clients like Miller, you just have to be a wall. Let the demands bounce off. He just nodded, his optimism unwavering. It's fine, Patricia. It's a learning experience. Besides, we're building his perfect trip. It'll be worth it when they have an amazing time. His innocence was both a strength and a liability. He poured his heart into the project. He learned a few phrases in Japanese to add a personal touch to the confirmation emails. He researched the best local artisans for the corporate gifts. He even designed a custom map of the gin district for the executive's free time. He wanted everything to be perfect. The client, however, was incapable of appreciating perfection. He was only capable of spotting flaws, real or imagined. As the departure date neared, the pressure intensified. David Miller himself scheduled a final review meeting at our office, a rare and usually ominous event. He wanted to walk through the entire itinerary, minute by minute, with the person who had handled the ground-level details. He meant Ben. I tried to run the meeting myself, but Sarah insisted. Mr. Miller prefers to deal with the person directly responsible for the bookings. I knew what that meant. He wasn't coming to review the plan. He was coming to find a scapegoat for any potential inconvenience. I told Ben I'd be right there with him. He just squared his shoulders and said, "I'm ready. I know this itinerary inside and out." The day David Miller and Sarah Jenkins walked into our office was the day the storm broke. The air turned cold, sucked out of the room by their presence. David didn't so much as glance at me, his eyes immediately landing on Ben, who stood nervously by the conference table, his meticulously organized binder in hand. David was tall and imposing, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my car. Sarah stood slightly behind him, a smug reptilian smile on her face. "You're the boy who booked the restaurants?" David asked, his voice dripping with condescension. He didn't wait for an answer. Let's begin. Page 1. For the next hour, they tore Ben's work apart. It was a brutal, systematic dismantling of a young man's confidence, the custom map he'd designed. "Childish, do you think we're on a school trip?" The welcome gifts he'd sourced from a local Kyoto artisan. Are you certain these are authentic? They look cheap. Every detail he had been so proud of was dismissed as amateurish or inadequate. Ben's face, initially bright with confidence, slowly fell. He tried to defend his choices, explaining the cultural significance of the gifts or the 5-star reviews of a particular restaurant, but his voice grew smaller with each interruption. I tried to step in multiple times. David, the Michelin guide, has praised that establishment for its authenticity. Or Ben Triple. Check the logistics on the transport. It's the most efficient route. But David would simply hold up a hand, silencing me. I'm speaking with the organ grinder, Patricia, not the monkey. Sarah would smirk. The venom in the room was thick enough to choke on. Ben, bless his heart, stood there and took it. He kept his composure, answering their questions, absorbing their insults without a single tear or angry word. He just nodded, his eyes fixed on his binder, his knuckles white. The final blow came when they reviewed the gala dinner plans. Ben had arranged for a traditional kaiseki dinner, a multi-course artistic dining experience. He had confirmed all dietary restrictions and even arranged for a translator to explain the significance of each dish. David scoffed, tossing the menu onto the table. A translator are my executives' children who need their food explained to them, and this seating chart. He pointed a long, manicured finger at the page. You have me seated next to Henderson. I can't stand Henderson. The entire trip is built around a celebratory dinner, and your incompetence has ruined the main event before it has even begun. Is this the best global journeys can do? Hire interns to manage its most important accounts. Ben's face was pale. He finally looked up, his eyes pleading. Sir, I followed the protocol I was given. I can change the seating chart right now. It's too late for that. David snapped. He turned to me. This is a mess. Your intern is a liability. I want him off the account. In fact, I don't want to see him again. If he's still here when I get back from Kyoto, I'm pulling our business. Is that clear? He didn't wait for my answer. He and Sarah turned and swept out of the room, leaving a trail of devastation behind them. The silence they left was deafening. Ben stood frozen for a moment, then slowly sank into a chair, his head in his hands. He didn't make a sound, but his shoulders shook. He had been publicly, cruelly, and senselessly humiliated. He had just nodded and accepted the abuse, trying to be professional. And in that moment, watching this bright, kind young man be broken for sport, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just about protecting my employee anymore, it was about justice. David Miller wanted a perfect trip. I decided I would give him one he would never forget, the one that would ruin him. After Ben left for the day, utterly defeated, I stayed late. The rage simmering inside me was cold and sharp. David Miller hadn't just insulted an employee, he had revealed a deep, seated cruelty that I couldn't ignore. Pulling the Innovate Dynamics account would be a huge blow to our agency, but threatening a young man's livelihood over a seating chart was monstrous. I stared at the Kyoto file on my desk, a mountain of paperwork detailing every facet of David Miller's upcoming week. It contained flight numbers, hotel suites, car services, and financial authorizations. To a travel agent, a client's itinerary is a sacred text. It holds the rhythm of their life, their preferences, their vulnerabilities. And David Miller was a man of very specific, very expensive habits. As I sifted through the documents, my focus shifted from damage control to something else. I wasn't looking for a mistake Ben had made, I was looking for a weakness of David's. The threat he'd made, if he's still here when I get back, gave me a deadline. I had exactly 1 week, the duration of the Kyoto retreat, to do something. I wasn't sure what yet, but I knew I had to act. The first clue came from an unusual place, the payment authorizations. Innovate Dynamics had a corporate account, but for this trip, David had insisted on using a separate private credit card for certain expenses. These weren't minor things. They included the booking of a second, entirely separate penthouse suite at the hotel and a private helicopter tour for 2. Scheduled for the one afternoon, the executives had been given for personal exploration. This was strange. The retreat was for his leadership team. Why book a second, secret suite? Why a helicopter tour for 2? The authorization forms were signed by him, but the secondary contact listed for these specific bookings wasn't Sarah. It was a name I didn't recognize, A. Croft. There was no A. Croft on the executive list. I cross. Reference the name with the company's employee directory. Nothing. A ghost. My heart started beating a little faster. This was a thread. It was small and seemingly insignificant, but it was out of place. Professional curiosity morphed into a determined hunt. I pulled up the hotel confirmation for the second suite. It was booked under the name Miller, but the guest manifest listed 2 occupants. The hotel, citing privacy policies, wouldn't give me the second name over the phone. My mind raced. David Miller was a married man. His wife wasn't on the trip. The most obvious explanation was also the most scandalous. But I couldn't act on a simple assumption. I needed proof. I looked at the helicopter tour booking again. The payment had been processed through a third-party luxury tour operator in Japan. On a hunch, I called their international service line. Posing as David's assistant, I feigned confusion. "Hello, this is Patricia calling from Innovate Dynamics. I'm just finalizing Mr. Miller's itinerary and seem to have misplaced the confirmation for his guest on the helicopter tour. Could you possibly tell me the full name listed for A. Croft so I can complete our records?" The agent on the other end was hesitant. "I'm sorry, madame, but we cannot share guest information." I pressed, adopting Sarah's imperious tone. "I have the booking number and the credit card authorization right here. Mr. Miller will be extremely displeased if his guest's welcome packet is incomplete because of this clerical error. Her name is all I need." The agent sighed, clearly not wanting to deal with an angry VB client. A few clicks of a keyboard later, he relented. "The full name we have is Amelia Croft." Amelia Croft. The name meant nothing to me, but it was a start. The clock was ticking. The executive team was flying out in 36 hours. I had to find out who Amelia Croft was and why the CEO of a publicly traded company was hiding her on a corporate retreat. David's world was built on an image of power and control. A secret, I suspected, was the one thing that could bring it all crashing down. With a name in hand, my investigation began in earnest. The internet is a vast ocean of information, and I was fishing for a very specific shark. I started with the obvious social media. A search for Amelia Croft yielded thousands of results, but none seemed to fit the profile of someone who would be secretly accompanying a tech CEO to Kyoto. I narrowed the search, adding keywords like Innovate Dynamics or the city where their headquarters was located. Nothing. It was as if she didn't exist in David Miller's professional or social orbit. This made her even more suspicious. A person who leaves no digital trail is often a person with something to hide. I changed tactics. Instead of searching for her, I went back to searching for him. I dug into Innovate Dynamics not as a travel agent, but as a forensic accountant. I scoured their press releases, shareholder reports, and lists of board members. The company was a giant, a publicly traded darling of the tech world. David Miller's official biography painted him as a visionary leader, a family man, and a philanthropist. His wife was a prominent figure at charity galas. It was all a carefully curated image. My breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a rival tech blog known for its investigative journalism. 6 months prior, they had published an article about a failed acquisition. Innovate Dynamics had been in talks to buy a smaller, but highly innovative, software startup called Next Gen Solutions. The deal had mysteriously fallen apart at the last minute, causing Next Gen to collapse and be sold for parts. The article quoted anonymous sources saying that David Miller had pulled out after gaining access to their proprietary code during the due diligence phase. It was a serious accusation of corporate espionage, but it was unproven. The CEO of NextGen had lost everything. His name was Robert Croft. My blood ran cold. Croft. It couldn't be a coincidence. A quick search for Robert Croft led me to his daughter's profile on a professional networking site, Amelia Croft. Her profile picture showed a sharp, intelligent-looking woman in her late 20s. Her job title, Senior Project Manager at a major competitor of Innovate Dynamics. My hands were shaking as I connected the dots. Amelia Croft wasn't David's secret lover. She was the daughter of the man whose company he had destroyed, and he was flying her to Kyoto, booking her a penthouse suite, and taking her on a private helicopter tour. This wasn't a secret affair. It was a secret deal. David Miller was colluding with a key employee from his biggest competitor. He was likely feeding her information, or she was feeding him information, or both. Whatever they were doing, it was a massive breach of ethics and a potential SEC violation that would not only destroy his career, but could also tank Innovate Dynamics' stock price. Now I had the what. I still needed the how. How could I expose this without it blowing back on me or the agency? I couldn't just call the board of directors and tell them what I suspected. I needed undeniable proof. The answer, once again, was in the itinerary. My itinerary, the one I had built, the one every executive, including David, would be following to the minute. The gala dinner in Kyoto was my focal point. It was the centerpiece of the retreat, the event David had used to humiliate Ben. It would now become his stage of judgment. I began to weave my web, using the tools of my trade, reservations, confirmations, and discreet phone calls. I contacted the hotel in Kyoto, speaking with the concierge manager, a woman I had worked with for years. I explained under the guise of security that I needed a small, last-minute adjustment to the gala dinner arrangements. I didn't cancel the translator Ben had booked. Instead, I gave him a new, very specific instruction. I also made a call to the audiovisual team handling the event, asking for a simple technical setup. Then I reached out to a trusted contact, a freelance journalist who owed me a favor, and gave her an anonymous tip about a major corporate story about to break in Kyoto. I didn't give her names, only a time and a place. The final piece of the puzzle was a small, innocuous-looking gift basket I arranged to be delivered to Amelia Croft's suite. It contained fruit, chocolates, and a beautifully designed card. The card read, "Looking forward to our conversation. Your father's legacy deserves to be honored." I didn't sign it. The ambiguity was the point. It was designed to unsettle her, to make her think her secret partnership with David was about to be exposed by someone else. It would make her desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. The Innovate Dynamics team departed for Kyoto. From my desk thousands of miles away, I watched my plan unfold like a perfectly timed travel connection. I tracked their flight, saw the notification when their private cars left the airport, and received an email from the hotel confirming they had all checked in. My Trojan horse, the gift basket, was delivered to Amelia Croft's suite an hour later. The goal was to plant a seed of doubt. David had likely promised her the world, revenge for her father, a high-paying job, a piece of the pie. But my note was designed to make her question her new ally. It suggested another player knew about their deal, someone who was framing it in terms of her father's honor, not corporate greed. It was a psychological nudge, a gentle push to make her seek reassurance from David. My first confirmation that the plan was working came from a source I had cultivated over years of working with the Kyoto Grand Hotel, a concierge named Kenji. I had sent him a polite email asking him to confirm that all of the Innovate Dynamics executives had received their welcome packets, a standard follow-up. I included a casual, offhand question, P.S. I hope the special arrangements for the penthouse suites went smoothly. Mr. Miller can be quite particular. Kenji, a man of extreme discretion but loyal to those who treated him with respect, replied within the hour. His email was professional, but I could read between the lines. Everything is in order, Patricia-san. The executives are settled. There was a minor, urgent request from one of the penthouse guests for a last-minute meeting tonight, which required us to rearrange some dinner plans. It has been handled. Bingo. A last-minute, urgent meeting. Amelia was rattled. She needed to talk to David, and she needed to do it now. They would think they were being clever, meeting in one of their private suites to discuss the anonymous note. But they were just walking deeper into my trap. The next phase of the plan centered on the gala dinner, which was scheduled for their final night in Japan. The event was being held in the hotel's most exclusive banquet hall, a room with stunning views of a traditional Japanese garden. The executives would be enjoying their meticulously planned kaiseki dinner, the very meal David had mocked, but this meal would have an extra course, karma. The small technical setup I had requested from the A/V team was a single, high-fidelity microphone, discreetly placed in a floral centerpiece on the main table where David would be seated. It was linked directly to the room's speaker system. The microphone was, of course, turned off. It was just a prop for now. The second part of the setup was a projector and screen, which were standard for corporate events. On the agenda, I had listed a special presentation to cap off the evening. Sarah Jenkins had assumed it was a corporate video I had arranged. She was wrong. The final piece was the translator Ben had booked. I had spoken with him directly. He was a young university professor of cultural studies, and when I explained the situation, that a kind young man had been humiliated and a corrupt CEO needed to be exposed, he was more than willing to play his part. His instructions were simple. During the main course, he was to approach the head table and speak directly to David Miller. using a very specific set of phrases I had provided. From my apartment, I opened a secure, encrypted messaging app on my laptop. The journalist I had tipped off was in Kyoto, waiting for my signal. I sent her a message: Kyoto Grand Hotel, Banquet Hall, 9 p.m. Japan Standard Time, be ready. The stage was set, the actors were in place. And David Miller, feeling secure in his power and arrogance, was about to sit down to his last supper as CEO of Innovate Dynamics. He had no idea that the entire trip, planned to celebrate his success, was in fact a carefully constructed Trojan horse designed to bring the enemy right inside his gates, and I was the one about to open the door. The night of the gala, I was at my desk with 3 screens open, one tracking email confirmations from my contacts in Kyoto, one on a secure line with my journalist source, and one displaying the Innovate Dynamics stock ticker. It was midday for me, but night was falling in Japan. My heart was pounding, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. This was the point of no return. At 9 p.m. Japan time, the dinner began. My journalist contact, posing as a guest of another party in the hotel, messaged me from the lobby bar, which had a partial view of the banquet hall entrance. They're all going in. Miller looks like he owns the world. The first few courses of the kaiseki dinner proceeded as planned. The executives, relaxed after a week of meetings and excursions, laughed and chatted. David Miller sat at the head of the main table, holding court, the picture of a corporate king. Sarah was beside him, ever vigilant. Then, as the main course was served, my plan kicked into high gear. The translator, a distinguished-looking Japanese man named Professor Tanaka, approached the head table as instructed. He bowed politely. "Miller-sama," he began, his voice calm but clear enough for those nearby to hear. "1,000 apologies for the interruption. A message was left for your guest, MS Amelia Croft." A hush fell over the immediate area. David's smile froze on his face. Sarah's eyes widened in panic. The other executives looked around in confusion. Who was Amelia Croft? Professor Tanaka continued, his voice ringing with theatrical sincerity. "The message says, your father would be so ashamed of the deal you made. Betraying his legacy for the man who destroyed him is a poor choice." David's face turned from pale to crimson. He shot a look at Sarah, a silent, furious command to fix this. But there was nothing to fix. Before she could stand up, Professor Tanaka bowed again. "Also for you, Miller-sama. A question. Does the board know you are using company resources to fund a partnership with a key employee from your largest competitor?" Chaos erupted at the table. The executives started murmuring, looking at David for an explanation. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is outrageous security," he bellowed. That was my cue. I sent a single word to my A/V contact inside the room, "Now." Instantly, the discreet microphone in the centerpiece went live, broadcasting David's sputtering rage throughout the entire hall. "Who is this man who let him in here?" he shouted, his voice echoing from the speakers. Simultaneously, the projector screen at the front of the room, which had been displaying the Innovate Dynamics logo, flickered to life. It didn't show a corporate video. It showed a crystal, clear image of the private helicopter booking, listing 2 passengers, David Miller and Amelia Croft. Then, it switched to a screenshot of Amelia Croft's professional profile, highlighting her position at the competitor's company. Finally, it displayed a scanned copy of the payment authorization for her secret penthouse suite, paid for by David's private card, but processed and documented by our agency. The room fell into a stunned, absolute silence, punctuated only by David's amplified, panicked breathing. He was exposed, cornered, and humiliated in front of his entire leadership team. The men and women who had revered him moments before were now staring at him with looks of shock and betrayal. One of the senior board members present, a man named Arthur Henderson, the very man David couldn't stand, rose slowly from his seat. His face was like stone. "David," Henderson said, his voice dangerously quiet but picked up by the microphone, "you have a lot to answer for. This dinner is over. We'll have an emergency board meeting as soon as we land." David Miller, the titan of industry, looked small and defeated. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He just stood there, his empire crumbling around him in a luxury banquet hall in Kyoto. My journalist contact was already typing furiously, sending the story to her editor. The boardroom coup was complete. It wasn't executed with spreadsheets and votes, but with a travel itinerary and a well-placed microphone. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. By the time the Innovate Dynamics team's flight touched down back home, the story was the headline on every major financial news network. My journalist's article, backed by the documents I had anonymously provided, was a bombshell. It detailed not just the secret meetings with a competitor, but also hinted at the original corporate espionage that had ruined Robert Croft's company, Next Gen Solutions. The stock plunged, investors panicked. The board of directors, led by Arthur Henderson, acted swiftly. David Miller was fired, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and a litany of ethical violations. Sarah Jenkins was fired the same day for her role in facilitating the deception. They were both escorted from the building with their belongings in a box, a walk of shame witnessed by the entire company. The SEC launched a formal investigation into David and the company's trading practices just days later. His reputation was not just tarnished, it was vaporized. Amelia Croft disappeared. She resigned from her position at the competitor firm, which quickly distanced itself from her actions. She had gambled on aligning with the man who ruined her father, and she had lost spectacularly. There was no justice for her, only the quiet disgrace of having betrayed her own family's legacy for a deal that blew up in her face. Back at Global Journeys, the atmosphere was tense for a day or two. We lost the Innovate Dynamics account, of course, but the story of what happened spread through the corporate world like wildfire. We had lost a toxic client, but we had gained something far more valuable, a reputation for integrity. Other companies, tired of the bullying tactics of CEO like David Miller, started calling us. They wanted to work with an agency that was discreet, professional, and clearly not afraid to do the right thing. Our business boomed. The best part of the aftermath, however, was Ben. I had called him the morning after the gala, before the news broke. I told him he didn't have to worry about his job. I didn't tell him what I had done, not in detail anyway. I just said, sometimes the itinerary changes. When the news about David Miller hit the press, Ben came to my desk, his eyes wide. He held a tablet with the headline displayed. He looked from the screen to me, a slow dawn of understanding on his face. He didn't say anything, but he didn't need to. He simply smiled, a genuine, grateful smile that was brighter than any I had seen from him before. He had his confidence back. He stayed with the agency and grew into one of our best and most respected agents, known for his kindness, meticulous work, and his quiet strength. My life didn't change dramatically. I still live in the same apartment, still drink the same coffee, and still plan trips for a living. But something inside me is different. I learned that my job wasn't just about booking flights and hotels. It was about managing the intricate paths of people's lives, and every so often, when someone's path is leading them to hurt innocent people, I have the power to reroute them. My name is Patricia, and I am a travel agent. I don't just plan itineraries, I deliver karma with 5-star service and a guaranteed final destination.